Hi, this is Dan Bullard, retired electronics engineer, sitting on my front deck of my houseboat again. Wow. I did that video about Catherine Kim, and boy, did I get a lot of heat. But I got a lot of views, too. I got like almost 1,500 views. That's great. I want to address a few things about that. You can't hand draw waveforms. Don't use PSpice. Somebody suggested using PSpice. PSpice doesn't do anything right, because if people at PSpice knew anything about this, I think it's analog devices, if they knew anything about harmonics, it would be all over the web. But it's not. Nobody on the planet knows anything about harmonics except for me and my followers. People who've read my books, I've got some great reviews on my books, and people who watch my videos like you. It's really cool. It's not just about electronics. I did that video where I drifted down the river and I talked about a mechanical set of harmonics came from a motor, a bearing in a motor. And so this mechanical engineer went around with a microphone and listened to this motor to figure out what was wrong with it, and he found a bad bearing. And it created a tone, fundamental, and it created harmonics. And he saw these things popping up in the spectrum, but he didn't know what they were. They are harmonics. What it was the shape of the defect in the bearing caused it to create a sine wave. Additionally, it created harmonics because of a distortion at 45 degrees. And how do I know it's 45 degrees? Because coincidentally, I had experimented, and I've pretty much replicated almost everything that can be done, but I experimented with Excel, and I proved one particular distortion at 45 degrees created the exact same spectrum. And so I published that on their website, a video on their website, and boom, they threatened to sue me. So I had to take the video down, and I cleaned it up and didn't mention their company. But they were threatening to sue me because I was so evil to them. And I don't try to be evil, but I can be very evil. I'm more than happy to be evil. Okay, here's the thing about harmonics. Harmonics are natural occurring things that happen, not just in electronics, but in trumpets and tubas and flutes and violins and guitars and even acoustic guitars. They create harmonics. Do you think the shape of that guitar is meant for aesthetics? No. Harmonics come from everything. I live on the water. Look behind me. I watch boats pass by all the time, and they throw out wakes, and I see what the wakes do. And that's part of what happens in my brain. I figure out what's going on with these things. And I've dealt with harmonics for, well, since 1990. I was doing DSP, and even before that, I was in electronics back in 1976. And in 1976, I was in electronics school in Great Lakes, Illinois. It was kind of funny. I got out of boot camp, and then I went to BEE school in San Diego. All my friends went there too. We were all going to be ETs. They went to BEE school, and I stayed behind. I stayed behind because my math was so bad. My friends went off to ET school in Great Lakes, and I got stuck behind in San Diego doing a remedial math course. Now, I'd already been through a year of college. I did the remedial math course, and then I went to Great Lakes. And there I was at the top of my class. Every friggin' week, we'd have a test on Friday, and they would score it, and they'd put the scores up on the wall, and it's just like in Starship Troopers. The scores were put up on the wall, and everybody's like, Bullard, again? Number one? Son of a bitch, I'll never get to top of the class. And that's the way it was. My whole ET school, ETA, then ETC school, I kind of fell behind because I was expected to do radar, and I'd never touched anything like that. I fell to number 2 in the class, and I graduated second in my class. But I was number 1 in my college class, so I was number 1 in college, number 1 in ETA school, number 2 in ETC school, and then I went to crypto school, I could tell you more, but then I have to kill you. And I got #1 in my class in the KW7 school, and KW7 was the reason that North Korea took the USS Pueblo. They wanted to get a KW7, so they captured the Pueblo. They took the KW7s off the Pueblo and shipped them to Russia, and Russia figured out why they couldn't get their decoders to work. So they used the crypto that was stolen from the Pueblo to figure out what they had done wrong. It was kind of simple, but it was pretty cool. I got the #1 spot in the KW7 school, which came back to help me because I went to San Nicolas Island, and then I got transferred to Australia, where I met my wife April. We got married in January, so we got a 45th anniversary coming up in a few weeks. And then I came back to the U.S. I got my orders. I talked to the detailer, and he said, "Oh, you should go to crypto school. We're going to send you to crypto school because your CO says you're a great trainer." And I was. I taught classes when I was in Australia. So they just sent me my orders, and I didn't even look at them. I flew back to the States. I went to instructor training school in San Diego. Then I went to Mare Island to pick up my new duty station. And I went into the crypto school, and they looked at my orders, and they couldn't figure it out. And I went off and talked. They came back, and they said, "Okay, hang on here for a minute." What had happened, I didn't realize it. I got assigned to the data processing school. So I was going to do computers in Mare Island. I didn't realize it because my detailer didn't tell me that. He told me I was going to get to crypto school. And the thing was, I didn't have secret security clearance for doing crypto. I could learn crypto, I just couldn't teach crypto. So what they decided to do was, they asked the FBI or somebody in the government to go off and get me a secret security clearance. And they took another guy who was in the crypto school already. They transferred him to the computer school in my place. So he was really mad. He got thrown out. He got put in the data processing school, the computer school, and I got left behind in the crypto school, and I had to wait. So I would go to school every day, sit in a room with a chief, and he'd keep an eye on me. And if I had to go to the bathroom, I'd say, "Hey, chief, I need to go to the bathroom," and he would walk me to the bathroom. I couldn't go anywhere alone in that building because I needed secret security clearance. When the secret security clearance finally came out, I was advanced to be an instructor. And so when I became an instructor, I became, believe it or not, I had the highest scores. My classes had the highest scores of any class in the history of the KW7 school. And that was like 15, 20 years. So no instructor had ever had scores higher than my classes because I was a good teacher and I really understood the KW7. So it was digital too. It was really cool. It was digital. The analog I didn't really get. I didn't understand it. I didn't want to understand it, and that was fine. So then I got out of the Navy and did a bunch of other stuff. But later on, I got into DSP, digital signal processing, and I really picked it up. FFTs and all that stuff, it was just natural to me, and I totally understand it. And I experimented with harmonics and all kinds of things, and eventually I picked up harmonics. And I wrote the book, Distortion. I learned a lot about electronics and a lot about physics while working in electronics. I worked on the Pentium 2 and the Pentium 3 and all kinds of devices. Now, I did this video about this professor, and I've done a lot of videos about people who are wrong. They're wrong, and they won't listen to me. I tried to tell them what's going on, what I think is going on, and they won't listen to me. And I'm not making shit up like Tony. Tony totally makes stuff up. I don't make stuff up. When I developed the Bullard harmonic solution, it took me months. And I fiddled with it and fiddled with it. Eventually I figured out the solution. I had pretty much given up. And one day, boom, popped in my head, got it. So it's really cool. The Bullard harmonic solution describes exactly what's happening with the creation of harmonics. And a Bullard plot shows you what's going on with harmonics. But if you don't do any of those things, you won't understand it. So I got all this heat on this video, and I did end up talking to a guy named Dan Schofield. And Dan, at first he was pretty critical, and I offered him a few of my videos, and he started watching them, and eventually I gave him one where I did this thing. Remember this? I transfer a distortion from one side of the wave to the other, and then back again. And I did that in frequency domain. I don't draw these things. I did that in frequency domain. And it's really tricky because in frequency domain, you have to pay attention to not just the Nyquist band. So you can make modifications in the Nyquist band, but you also have to make modifications way up above the Nyquist band from n over 2 to n, or f sub s over 2 through f sub s. And up there, one half of the waveform has to be flipped. So whatever you're doing, you have to remember that part has to be flipped. It's inverted. It has to have a minus sign. You have to do negative things in there. It's really tricky. So this Dan Schofield guy, I gave him the video. I challenged him to do this thing where I transfer the distortion from one side of the wave to the other, and he did it. And it looks like this. This is how it came out. Now I can't say this is perfect. I mean, he did this in a day though, so you got to give him credit. He did this in a day, so he got it done. It seems to work. It seems to move it. You can just, if you did it, just flip it over. That would be cheating, right? But he seemed to make it do it properly, so I'll give him that. I think he learned something. And, you know, he can always comment on this video. How did you do it? What did you do? But it's not easy, because I would normally take, on my old Lenovo, it would take me 2 weeks to do that. But he did it in like a day, or maybe a day and a half. I don't know what he does for a living, but apparently he doesn't have anything else to do. So you can do some really cool things. All you got to do is open your mind and look at how things work. And look at these guys doing these, oh, I love those seagulls back there. Look at these guys doing these things on harmonics. They're wrong. They are wrong. And it's lovely. So that's how you make a hole for yourself. You find something that nobody else really understands, and you dig out. But the problem is all these people have themselves firmly entrenched in fantasy. They believe in fantasies, like Catherine Kim. She believes in complete fantasies, that harmonics are random. And I've heard that all my life. Harmonics are random. My buddy Terry Wilson told me, the humping pattern that you see, that's caused by an artifact. That's an artifact. It's not an artifact. It really is real. And you can do it. I mean, if you use a spectrum analyzer, you won't get anywhere. But if you do coherent sampling with an Applicos or an Audio Precision, or, like I've said before, a Next Test or a Credence or a Teradyne or LTX, you can do some amazing things if you can do it coherently. If you can't do it coherently, fuck you. You can't learn this. You can't understand this. But learn how to do it coherently. Now, you don't really need a tester. You can just use Excel like I do. And I give you the link. You can go grab the file and do the FFTs and all that stuff in Excel. It's really not difficult. But you've got to keep your mind open. You've got to stop thinking like Tony, or like Catherine Kim, or like all these people on Stack Overflow, or all about circuits. You got to stop thinking like those people, because they're idiots. There's a lot of idiots out there. You need an IQ of at least 135, at least. And my buddy Daver who gave me a great review on distortion, he's got an IQ of 145. So you might have a chance if you have a decent IQ, but if you have an IQ of 118, which is like the average for the guy with a BS double E, forget it. You'll never get anywhere. You'll never understand this stuff. You might as well go back to like pounding on rocks, making cloth out of plants, making burgers and fries and coffees. You'll never get it. You'll never understand it, no matter what you do. You have to have the intellect to do this. I have an IQ of 135. That apparently is enough. That's what the guy who invented the transistor had, Shockley. Shockley had an IQ of 135. That's all it takes, apparently, to be brilliant. But my buddy Daver, he's extremely brilliant, 130, 145. And I've known people with IQs, several people with IQs in the 140s. And they're pretty smart. They do some amazing things. But they can also be wrong. But if you don't have an IQ of 135, give it up. Decide to go do a government job, do nothing useful, flip burgers, whatever. Anyway, it turned out to be a really nice day. Thank God for that. It's December 5th. December 7th is Saturday. Wow. The date that will live in infamy. Anyway, from the river, once again, this is Dan Bullard. See ya.